think we're ready to get started. It's actually
awesome.
Chatting like how. Oh, I have a spider on my thing. Hold on a second while I freak out about a spider.
Perfect.
It's like the teeniest, tiniest spider too. So thanks everyone for the panelists here today, and for all of you that are watching in the audience. Really sort of this intention of this talk today. So we're talking about taking our first step with tech. And I really wanted to bring sort of like 5 friends together, new and old, to just sort of talk about taking these first steps, especially like impact tech. So I'm going to start off with introducing myself, and then we'll kind of go around. So I'll go, Ari, you go, and Corey, and Sylvia, and then Judd. Does that work for that order? And then I'm going to be asking questions, but I would encourage everyone else throughout the talk here to ask questions that you have as well in the chat. For the group here, I really want this to just feel like a really organic, fun conversation that I hope you all take some really great insights out of. So to start with, introducing myself. So hi, I'm Liz Tupper. I'm the Director of Product Strategy at Software for Good. Software for Good isn't just a clever name. We actually build software for good. So we build web and mobile applications for all types of organizations, nonprofits, social enterprises, startups, government. You have, that sounded awkward. You have it. And so that's me. I'm the moderator of today's panel, and then we'll go to Ari.
Hi, my name is Ari Odaya. I'm the founder of SID Technologies. We are applying big data and emerging technologies to evaluate, uncover, and correct the influence of human bias on decision-making and communication.
Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Powell. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at iPonder. iPonder is a company where we combine media, tech, and analytics to foster empathy. And our core product is iPonder at Work, which is DEI and culture building education programming for businesses and organizations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sylvia Antonida, and I am the founder of the Trade Center of the Americas, which is basically a digital marketplace based on blockchain technology that fosters supply chain across the Americas, North, Central, and South America, based on sustainable development and transparency and traceable standards.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judd Grutman. I'm the founder of Bonzella. Bonzella is a public benefit corporation focusing on insurance services for historically excluded communities. And we first started with a bail insurance product, which we were able to work with Software for Good on a web app that we used in our first pilot.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks for those amazing introductions. So as we're starting to talk about your projects and your companies, I'd love to start with a question. And I feel like whoever's most excited to go first, maybe we have you go first. But the first question is sort of, in the process of starting your business, when did you know it needed technology? Sort of, was it right away or at some other point in the process?
I can go. For me, it was right away. SID had always been a solution that was tech enabled. It initially started as a MarTech solution to better target women, and has morphed into something else.
I would say for us, it was right away as well. Our core strength is, our foundational element is kind of journalism and kind of lifting up untold stories using various media platforms. And so, we knew as a digital media organization, delivery is at the core of that. And so we knew we were going to be built on tech and built on bringing different pieces together.
For me as well, I think it was, we couldn't do this without technology. And it was basically the way we can connect And of course, COVID reassured us, gave us that reassurance. So yeah.
I would say for us, it took about a month or two of sitting in court. We were trying to figure out how to disrupt bail bonds essentially, and so we sat in court for a while. And once we realized how everyone else was conducting business, we realized tech would be a big asset to us. So
Cool. That was actually more people who knew right away than I thought. So that's actually cool to hear, though. So here's the next question. Did the tech stay the same? Or as you were moving along with your project and your business, did it change? And how did it change? Who wants to take that one?
I'll go first. We're less than a year old. We launched our public-facing site in January, and so as we were building toward that, of course, that was kind of an evolutionary process, and fits and starts, and coming up with ideas and being, oh wait, now we need something else, and which is always an interesting process because sometimes you feel a little bit like you're bolting things on. As the car's running down the road, which is an analogy that we used a lot. And as we've kind of moved forward from January, the core has stayed the same. I mean, we're still kind of an amalgam of, an integration of the same technologies. But we found and identified an opportunity and a different audience and a different customer along the way. And so we've had to do a lot of then kind of reconfiguring and rethinking how we can, not have thrown out, months of development work that, came before January, but repurposing to kind of suit a new need. So that's been an interesting challenge, and one where you're really grateful for smart developers.
Yeah, I can concur with that. I can go next. So the as I mentioned earlier, the idea for SID has changed. The technology has not. I had always I had identified AI earlier on as the technology of choice here. And that happened while engaged as a NFL Business Connect vendor. I had attended a SportsCon event at Optum, and they just shared a lot of insights on the real world capabilities of AI and how AI is actually being used in our new stadium. And I was just kind of blown away, like, wow. So and the conversations that I was privy to were very male skewed, from marketing to the tech, right? So it was very male skewed, and I was like, well, there's a whole market here that they're just completely missing. So maybe we can use this technology to better target women. At that time, that was the height of Kaepernick taking a knee, Black Lives Matter protests, Trumpism started to really gain footing. And I just wanted to do something and use this technology to drive change in a way that changed my quality of life, in general, and others that look like myself. So that's kind of where the technology or the idea started.
I think to me, it really evolved. It has been just a constant evolvement, because when I first started pitching the business model to Minnesota companies or to investors, it was very hard to explain. And then I decided to go down to South America and find investors there, and they really got it. Like, they got it. They clicked with only the name, gave them the entire business model. So I needed to come back and kind of restructure everything. And it's been just a learning process. But I think technology, we have in common technology because it uses the same language. meaning technology. But as far as cultural competences, it's more, you have to adapt to two different cultures or to two different worlds. So it's been challenging in that sense.
I don't have much to add to this one. As we've changed our business model over time, we've started focusing on selling other people's products too. So other carriers' products, and so that requires some additional technology. But generally speaking, the insurance industry is pretty far behind, and so a web app in and of itself is pretty monumental. So.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So this is a question, maybe Sylvia, we start with you for this question because you kind of touched on this, like the cultural competency being different, but like, how did you go about learning how people are going to use the technology that you're building? Like, and you're talking about, different culture needs that might have different wants as well with the technology.
Yeah, I think technology fixed my problem because at first I didn't know how to go about transferring my knowledge or what I wanted to do. And then my daughter actually learned how to code and how to do things and how to develop the website. She had neither her nor myself had any background on that, but we definitely, I think it was a great combination having her. She wasn't born, but she was raised here in Minnesota. I was born and raised in Ecuador, and so bridging that gap to translate what we wanted to accomplish was key. And also the conversations, picking, on people's brains on, okay, how can we be most useful? I think what I will strongly encourage people to do who are starting a business is to talk to people, to exchange ideas. I've learned so much from the conversations, from people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, because all of them had something to add to this. So that's how I got to this point, which I feel more confident and more established in this startup.
Does anyone else want to take that question too? How did you go about learning about how people were going to use the technology you're building?
I just wanted to say I love the fact that your daughter was the one, but I mean, yay for us women, girl power. I mean, like seriously, and this is why we need more women in this space. But anyways, I digress. I can go on about that.
You're here to that.
You're right.
I was just going to say, we tried to figure things out during COVID, which was pretty hard to do because you just didn't have the same human to human interaction. And we sort of cheated in a way by seeing which apps that were close that our users would use instead. And so we started, our users were keen on using Cash App. And so we started figuring out what we needed to do based on how they were using Cash App with us.
Awesome.
So for us, I mean, one of the interesting things about what we were, building originally was, there were lots of models out there, and, I and others in our team, with media backgrounds had experience building like audience products, digital audience products for media. But when you're talking about like fundamentally different content and a different kind of experience with that content, for us, it was really important pretty early on to do some user testing. And since we were really our focus is on like trying to bridge divides, it became really important to get a really intentionally broad and diverse mix of users to come in and early on, it was really rough really rough prototypes, with real stories, but the experience itself, in some cases wasn't even, the experience was implied more than usable. But that kind of early raw testing was really important to kind of validate some assumptions early on.
It kind of goes to Sylvia's point about like going out there and talking to people, right? Like it can start with some conversations, but then when you've got some concepts on paper or like a digital prototype, going out and actually interacting with the humans that you want using this software is super key to start getting that feedback. And it's, I find it's a cheaper way to start sometimes than going out and like bringing on engineers to build a thing that maybe people might not use. And then some of that stuff needs to be thrown away.
And to that point, like we're early stage at this moment. We're still in development. Our prototype is a bot that can be deployed into collaborative spaces like Slack and Teams and Discord. So our goal with that is really to understand the context of how biases are emerging and how we communicate. Oh, excuse me. And not necessarily to police anyone's communication or monitor it. Really, it's really to get a great understanding of where those biases, because they're implicit biases, right, in our communication. And the key to SID is to make us aware of our unconscious bias, because we all have them, right? As soon as we start to recognize what those biases are, then we can self-correct. So one is providing value within those collaborative spaces where you're becoming more aware of and mindful of the way you communicate. And two is for us to really do our research, right? And understanding where those implicit biases lie and those nuances in our communication, and be able to improve upon our model.
I think, Liz, if I could add something, I think, one thing about that early user testing that I think, is something we had to watch for, and you have to do a certain amount of filtering out, is you get in that kind of situation where, what you're asking is a hypothetical. It's, experience this, and would you use this? Would you like that? And those kinds of participants, they want to be nice, they want to help. And so they're like, oh yes, absolutely. I would write you a check today for, which is seldom actually. So you'd always have to kind of take some of that with take the good and the bad with a little bit of a grain of salt, and kind of try to normalize that a little bit. Because I think it's, and I've had this experience before, where it's really easy to get out ahead of yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of getting ahead of ourselves, we would like to have, if you're interested in testing, let me know. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you're interested in SID.
Yeah, I feel that, Corey, especially if the people that you're reaching out to are in the Midwest or Minnesota, right? Like everyone wants to just be nice.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do when I walk into those types of interviews or prototype testing is letting people know, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, right? Like, my whole point of this is to make sure to understand what's, in the work that I do, what's going to be the biggest impact. And so I need you to be as honest as possible. And even if that honesty is like, I don't know, or this is kind of meh, like they don't hate it, but they don't love it. Those are things that I want to know. There's a really good question from the audience that I'd like to go to. It's from Margaret Lynn Scott. I think it's just Lynn Scott. What kind of tech person do you talk to when starting up a business and want to see the options and be creative in what tech could be useful?
Well, Startup Week is a great start, by the way. So kudos to you. I know that when the idea for SID came about in February, right around the Super Bowl, and my first Startup Week was in the fall, so I was able to take that opportunity to test the idea, just kind of put out some fillers. And I was able to meet some initial people, experts in the space, and ask questions, follow up with coffee and all of that, and really dived in. And they were able to make introductions that have been monumental for my founder journey and just the tech itself. So I think you're in the right space right now. Definitely check out the sessions. I checked out the sales, marketing and sales and founder sessions. Track sessions is where you'll meet a core of those people.
So, what else have?
I would
on
just
that
say I think it's a great question, because you're thinking ahead and trying to, make sure you're covering all your bases. I would say there's a lot of online resources that, including like TechCrunch, Crunchbase, that might tell you more about what else is out there, so that you have a better sense of what your options might be. It also might just spawn some creativity in your mind too. So
when I start to envision someone else's project, right? Because I'm working on other people's projects and brought in to help other people's projects. I try to think of components of the thing that we're building and how that maybe already exists elsewhere in the world. And I'll use an example I use a lot. Like we rolled out a program called Housing Hub, which is all about finding affordable housing, specifically project-based Section 8 housing. And we took what TurboTax did for taxes. So like navigating these really complex government forms, because we were helping a person navigate a complex government program, and taking what Airbnb does for hospitality and making like easy, beautiful searches, and sort of finding like these other tools across other industries that kind of embody or resemble this thing you want to build. So I'm a big believer in like sampling. Like you don't always have to recreate everything, right? You can look across different areas for inspiration. And then to, everyone else's point, like just start talking to people. If you start talking to people, like one of the really great things about the Twin Cities, both tech and startup communities, like people really want to help each other. And so people are really okay with opening up their network and saying, oh, have you talked to so-and-so? Well, let me get you contacted. And so I think just by like start talking and meeting with people, you'll find that like there'll be a deluge of more people to connect to and talk with. And also Google stuff, Google firms, software development agencies or other startups that might kind of be in this space that would be willing to talk to you. Just start contacting people. Cold contact people on LinkedIn too. It works.
LinkedIn is very powerful.
Well, and I think, Liz, there's something really important in what you said there, right? I mean, just talking to people is an important first step. And I think it can be easy to over edit yourself and say, oh, but I'm looking for someone who knows exactly the right thing. But sometimes you don't know exactly what you need. And as you talk to people, even if it's not in their wheelhouse, they'll know people who will help you find the right wheelhouse. And I think that's the thing that's so important in that. And you're right, it's a community that is super happy to help and make introductions, and kind of make the right introductions.
So I'm going to ask another one of my questions. What do you wish you would have known at the beginning or would have done differently now that you've been on this journey with tech?
I'll go with that one. Open up. Open yourself to, be open to receive. Sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you are so focused on the business plan and you don't reach out to people. And you don't, just be aware that there are people that want to help, even if they don't help you with money or investors, but they are always willing to, as you said, to support you. And everything is about networking, and not networking in the sense, in the rhetoric of, oh yeah, network. No, really intentional networking works for me. And I wish I could have done that a year ago. Well, it was COVID, but anyways, and LinkedIn works definitely.
Anyone else want to take that one? What do you wish you would have known at the beginning or have done differently?
What I would have done differently was, and this is probably not the most popular response, but I would definitely have expanded beyond Minnesota in my search for support programs. I think I would have had more traction by now. Probably I'd done that. So I would say, while by all means, tap the resources in this space. Know that there are resources outside of Minnesota as well that are very helpful, and they may be more helpful at an early stage. Whereas, so in addition to Minnesota, look elsewhere for technical support, for knowledge sharing, network building. LinkedIn is very powerful. Go beyond the United States, if even possible. Expand, like really truly expand your research and tap programs, diverse programs around the world.
I completely agree, especially if you're a minority.
Exactly.
If you're a minority in Minnesota, I don't think that, I'm sorry, but I might be a little biased on this, but this is not the right place. If you're a minority, reach out to other places.
If you are, and I want to take this opportunity, hopefully I don't offend anyone, and not my intention. I'm still working on the delivery of this. In terms of like the term minority, if we can pivot from that term to underrepresented groups, underserved groups, systemically excluded groups and individuals, because even minority historically has been used to describe people of color or Black people specifically, even when they are the majority. So it's a very othering, and it gives a sense of inferiority, and it's just it's a particular language that I would like to encourage us to move from, if possible. Hopefully that delivery was nice there. I'm still working on my delivery.
That's good, Ari. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
There's some other participant questions that I want to ask too. So Robert Walsh, you'd asked, you had stated, can you discuss how the technology is an enablement by the customer using it? And I am taking this in maybe a little bit differently than maybe your intention. So please throw some more comments in if you were going down a different path. But I was just sort of thinking about like how the rise of social media has completely changed how we communicate and connect as people, and how social, like even Facebook has really evolved in the last decade. And so, my thought on this is that sometimes when you build software, there are people use it in unintended ways than what was originally intended for, and sometimes in a good way, and sometimes in a bad way, and sometimes in a mix. And so I'm not quite sure where to take that, but I thought that was a really interesting, kind of made me think a little bit. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add on that.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, can you discuss how technology is enablement by the customer using it?
How the technology is enabled by the customer?
Yep.
I guess the for AI specifically, and I'm by no means the expert in AI. I should just make it clear. I feel like I'm an expert in the use of AI. But in terms of the technology, from how I understand, the end users usage of that technology contributes to the algorithm, right? So in terms of our algorithm, is built upon the user's usage. So I guess maybe that could be enabling. I don't know. Does anyone want to add to that? Okay.
I hear that, and I mean, I would say that for us, I mean, so kind of at the core of iPonder is an experience that is a media consumption experience, and then trying to get and hopefully drive interaction by the users with the content. And so, part of that area, to your point, is, trying to reward that experience with some interactivity and stuff. But of course, for us, we're also an analytics organization that's, trying to understand the sentiment behind that consumption. And so, the users at 100%, kind of power that ability. And, we see that, the opportunity there, like you do as well, I think, is the opportunity for that, that AI to become more intelligent, the more the more it's used.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over to one of my questions again. So I'd love to know from each of you, did you have a background in tech before starting on this journey with your company, your project?
I did not. I was a lawyer.
Are you still, Judd?
I guess technically, but not practicing.
Recovering.
Recovering.
I am also a recovering attorney.
Look at there.
Great about that.
Wow, you guys make me glad I didn't go on that track. I'll be recovering too. I had a background from a MCS D perspective, and it gave me the foundation. I don't have any official data science training or machine learning training, but I'm learning a lot. And this is where I wanted to mention this earlier. Databricks and Plato Elevate is one of the sources that I go to in my self-learning path. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have enough capacity to actually, because I feel like with more education, with more deeper understanding, I can be more creative about the application of AI for good. And, I hope to, in a couple of years, pursue an MBA in data science.
I guess I've spent a lot of my career working with technical people, and developers and engineers and product and smart product people. And so I know enough to know how to communicate, but in terms of being an expert in tech, 100% no. But in terms of thinking about, kind of how journalism reaches, an audience, it was important to be able to kind of speak the language, to be able to to start to frame up problems and challenges in the right way.
Yeah, I love that. I loved all the answers to the question. And it makes me reflect back on, so I had a startup about a decade ago. I had a video game startup. And so I've been in tech for over 2 decades. I was a self-taught engineer. And I never worked in the video game industry, but I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so it was really interesting to me, whatever your passion is that drives you, you can step into these other modes. You don't have to have all the pieces figured out, but I feel like tech is a way that anyone can step into this. I'm not saying it's always going to be easy, right? But there are ways that you can step into tech without having a background in tech. And so I just don't want people to be intimidated by this idea that you already have to have experience in tech to be working in tech and having a tech company. My
background is in entertainment, and from a video editing perspective, that's technology right there. I mean, I learned a lot about Adobe and graphic design from video editing. right? And being on and then when you're on set, there's the audio. I mean, I can't even tell you, the audio engineering is high tech, okay? High tech. And I mean, now everyone is getting the filter where you can, change your appearance and look younger, nicer. That has been a thing for 15 years in the entertainment space. All those stars that you think they look like that, they don't. They don't. They look just like you and me. So the technology has been there for quite some time. Now is the application to everyday practical use, like filters are a thing now, and where it was high tech before.
I will add something that I think to me is very important, and it's the transparency that technology brings to me, to the type of business that I'm. So I was a diplomat. I was an attorney doing international law for the Foreign Service. And of course, I was an advisor on trade, on foreign trade for countries in South America because of the nature of what I was doing. But I found out that what is lacking in bilateral trade is transparency. Mm. And I found out that through traceability in technology, connecting all the people that I've met throughout the years that I've been helping doing international development, it is just amazing because you can upload the entire company, the entire legal structure of an organization and also of a country, upload it and connect. And to me, that brings transparency. Mm-hmm. And right now, because of the supply chain disruption in the world, technology is doing this, what I wanted to accomplish. And that's what I went. I don't have any idea of technology. I'm learning. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely self-taught right now because of my daughter. We both are doing it online and we're learning. But I found, thanks to Impact Hub, I found Software for Good, where Liz works, and that has been a revelation for me because this dream of having this all-inclusive platform is coming true because of this opportunity.
On that note, I have another question. So, like, what skill sets, what expertise or partners helped you to get where you are now?
Mm-hmm. I have a great team of group of advisors. Like, again, through the networking that I've done over the last 3 years, and pretty much if you go on our website, sit.ai, that's SSIID.ai, you'll see our group of advisors, and they have been, these are advisors that have played a role in getting us a step closer to bringing SID to fruition. And I lean on them to prioritize my efforts. They're amazing. They open up doors and they open up network. They make introductions. They give you expert advice on the technology. So if you're able to put together, and it doesn't have to be official, if you're able to put together a trusted group of people that you can tap for advice and, for connections, that's what I would recommend.
I would echo that too. I think it's especially, if you're breaking into a new industry or a new arena for you, I think it's incredibly helpful to have some experts that guide you, open doors for you. I also will say too, like, technology isn't the entire solution to everything. And so a lot of, what a startup is about is building relationships, and both with customers and with collaborators.
Yeah, I will third the importance of kind of a network, and people that you can use as sounding boards, regardless of what the project is. I think and developing people and taking advantage of their networks, helping to, use that to get access to kind of more and more expertise. And something you just said, Judd, made me think, that it's also about recognizing, and this goes back to your previous question, Liz, about, no, I don't have I don't know that I still wouldn't necessarily say I have a background in tech. But technology is part of the solution for anything I wanted to do for the last 30 years. And so it's important to kind of look at yourself and take an inventory of what skills and expertise do you bring to it that can help make this process go, and for me, that's, the ability to communicate and speak strategy to developers and speak a little bit of, developer speak back to stakeholders and creatives and whatnot, and being able to kind of bridge that gap. But, it's kind of knowing your own strengths and then understanding kind of how do you bring those to bear. And it's whether it's a technical solution or something else, or partnership, or it's part of the sales, process. A lot of it is, having a good sense of kind of what you bring, and everybody has them, and so trying to find a way to play to your strengths and not try to necessarily, it's not necessarily about fixing things that you don't have, but how can you find an opportunity to take advantage of the things that you're good at?
Completely agree with the four of you.
We've got one last audience question, and I think we're going to be at time. So Rachel, is it Frosh? I hope I got that right. So what's the best next step after developing a prototype for an app, but need to hire a developer to create a beta? So I can speak to this a little bit. So prototypes are great. Betas are great. I think you don't always need a developer to do a beta. Sometimes you can do betas with no code solutions. That requires some, more manual people power in some cases, or using like a service like a HubSpot or something. You could hire developers or engineers. I think there's a lot of different paths you could take. You could continue to prototype and iterate on your prototype as well, depending on how you have feedback. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts or ideas that they would want to share about that.
I just learned about a low code solution. I'm gonna try to find it. Have you heard of Marvel app? And I learned about this application from Marlena Love, who is the Minnesota chapter lead for Blacks in Tech. Make sure to check out their session. I'm in a session with her later, but I'm gonna try to share this link with you all. Can I share the link or?
Yeah, I might have just shared it. Is it marvelapp.com?
Yes.
Yeah, I just shared that.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Well, and I think in that, particularly at super early stage, obviously where, you're bootstrapping, perhaps, I think, again, that's a time when, this has come up several times, where you lean into kind of that network of trusted, advisors. And, there are, if you've got an idea that people can believe in and will, buy into, a lot of times there's quicker and relatively easy and cheap, or sometimes free ways to kind of get a little help to get that next step down the line. And
Grants.
recognizing that you're, you have these connections for a reason, and people oftentimes will help.